Trust comes easy when you've never been betrayed. I thought my marriage was built on a foundation of honesty and respect, a quiet success story of hard work and simple dreams. Then I caught my wife with another man in our home, my home, and discovered that everything I believed was a carefully crafted lie. What followed wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the systematic dismantling of the fantasy world they'd created behind my back, a cold and meticulous revenge that left nothing but ashes where their future plans once stood. This is how I destroyed the woman who destroyed me. I was never supposed to be anything special, just a factory floor manager at Midwest Auto Parts, where I'd climbed from assembly line grunt to running 40 men on the production floor. 15 years of showing up early, staying late, fixing problems no one else wanted to touch. The guys respected me for it. At 36, I made decent money, $68,000 a year. Not mansion money, but enough to own my little 2-bedroom house free and clear, drive a reliable truck, and take care of my wife. My wife. Vanessa Miller became Vanessa Clark 7 years ago after we met at my buddy Dave's 30th birthday. I still remember her laugh cutting through the din of that crowded bar, bright, genuine, impossible to fake. She was wearing a simple black dress, nothing flashy, her dark hair falling just past her shoulders. When our mutual friend introduced us, her eyes lit up in a way that made me forget everyone else in the room. "Ethan Clark," I'd said, extending my hand. "Factory guy?" "Vanessa Miller," she'd replied, taking it. "Retail girl." She managed the accessories department at Macy's, scarves, handbags, jewelry. We found common ground immediately, both of us working people, both of us terrible at karaoke but willing to make fools of ourselves anyway. Both of us obsessed with old black and white detective movies where men wore hats and women were either angels or trouble. Our courtship was nothing extraordinary. Italian dinners at Vincenzo's where the checkered tablecloths had seen better days. Saturday afternoons walking through Riverside Park, her hand in mine, talking about someday. Late nights on my couch watching Bogart and Bacall, her head on my shoulder, the weight of it feeling right in a way I couldn't explain. 2 years later, we stood before a justice of the peace with 20 friends watching. I promised to love and cherish her until death. She promised the same. We spent a week in a cabin in the Smoky Mountains, disconnected from the world, connected to each other in ways that felt permanent and true. The first 2 years of marriage, Vanessa kept working at Macy's. Then one night over dinner, she brought it up. "I've been thinking, Ethan, what if I quit? Focus on making our home perfect? Maybe start thinking about kids?" She'd looked nervous, like I might say no. I didn't hesitate. "If that's what you want, Van, my pay covers the bills. The house is paid for. We're good," I assured her. The relief in her eyes made me feel 10 feet tall, like I'd done something right, being able to support her. The next 3 years were solid, comfortable, if not exciting. Coming home to the smell of dinner cooking. The house always clean. Movie nights where she'd curl against me like a cat. Sunday morning breakfasts with bacon perfectly crisp. Eggs exactly how I like them. The small rituals of a marriage that works. We talked about kids when the time was right. We planned a deck for the backyard next summer. We were building something steady, something that would last. That's who Vanessa was then, warm, appreciative, present. She looked at me like I mattered. Touched my arm when she walked past, left little notes in my lunchbox. 1,000 small gestures that said, "I see you. I chose you." I'm glad I did. That version of Vanessa died 3 months ago at a barbecue, and I didn't even know it until it was too late. I should have noticed the warning signs earlier, but I was working 12-hour shifts, trusting my wife, believing in our vows. I was a fool. It started with a neighborhood barbecue. Sandra Thompson, a friendly woman in her 50s who lived 3 houses down, widowed, always bringing us cookies at Christmas, invited Vanessa over one Saturday afternoon in June. "Just the neighborhood wives," Sandra had explained when she'd caught me mowing the lawn. "Nothing fancy. Some wine, some gossip. You know how it is." I didn't think twice about it. Vanessa needed friends. She'd lost touch with most of hers after quitting Macy's. I kissed her goodbye that afternoon, planned to catch the baseball game, maybe order a pizza. When she came home that evening, something was different. Her eyes had a faraway look. Her movements were distracted, like her mind was elsewhere. "Good time?" I asked, glancing up from the TV. Hmm? Oh, yeah, she answered, setting her purse down, checking her phone. Sandra's friend Christine was there. She lives in Oakwood Heights. Oakwood Heights, the development across town where homes started at $500,000, where doctors and lawyers lived. You should have seen her house, Ethan, Vanessa continued, scrolling through her phone. She showed us pictures. Marble everything, a pool. Walk-in closets bigger than our bedroom, I laughed it off. Good for her. I hope her husband enjoys those 60-hour work weeks paying for it, I joked. Vanessa didn't laugh back, just kept scrolling. Over the next few weeks, small changes accumulated. Vanessa spent hours online showing me images of kitchen renovations with granite countertops, custom cabinetry. We could do something like this, she'd say, eyes bright with something I couldn't name. That's a $40,000 kitchen, Van. Not in the budget, I reminded her. Her face would fall. Other husbands manage to provide these things, she'd retort, voice edged with accusation. The complaints started small, then multiplied. Our furniture was outdated. Our house was embarrassing. Our life was going nowhere. I tried reasoning with her. We had no debt, owned our home outright, had savings, lived comfortably within our means. Comfortable isn't enough anymore, she'd reply, turning back to her phone, scrolling through Instagram posts of women in infinity pools, holding designer bags that cost more than my monthly salary. The physical distance grew in parallel with the emotional. Vanessa stopped initiating affection. When I'd reach for her at night, she'd pull away. I'm not in the mood, she'd mutter, turning her back to me. Our Friday movie nights ended. Sunday breakfasts became silent, perfunctory. Conversations withered into logistics about bills and groceries. I felt it in my gut. That knot that forms when something vital is slipping away. I tried everything I could think of. Planned date nights she'd cancel at the last minute. Bought flowers she'd barely acknowledge. Suggested couples counseling. We don't need therapy, Ethan, she'd snapped. We need money. The woman I'd married was vanishing, replaced by someone bitter, resentful, fixated on wealth and status I couldn't provide. I lay awake nights, wondering what I'd done wrong. Could I have worked harder? Made more money? Been more ambitious? The questions circled like vultures. Then came a Tuesday evening when I got home earlier than usual. Vanessa was on the phone in the kitchen, her voice animated, bright, a tone I hadn't heard directed at me in weeks. The moment she saw me, she went silent, hung up quickly. Who was that? I asked, setting down my lunchbox. Just Sandra, she said too quickly. Talking about book club. Vanessa had never mentioned a book club before. I didn't believe her. But I didn't have proof. Not yet. 3 weeks after the distance began, Vanessa told me she was going out with the girls for dinner. She dressed differently than usual, makeup perfect, dressed tight across her hips, heels higher than she typically wore for casual outings. I watched her apply an extra coat of mascara, spray perfume at her wrists and neck. Have fun, I said, watching her grab her purse. She kissed my cheek, a reflex with no feeling behind it. Love you, she murmured distractedly. I watched her pull out of the driveway, and for the first time in our marriage, I felt genuine suspicion coil in my gut like a snake. She came home at 1 a.m. that night, makeup smudged, claiming they'd lost track of time. I pretended to believe her. But the next morning, I made a phone call that would change everything. The morning after Vanessa's suspicious night out, I waited until she left for her weekly grocery run. Then I logged into our shared phone account, something I'd never felt the need to check before. What I found made my stomach drop. Dozens of calls to a number I didn't recognize, some lasting over an hour. Texts to the same number, deleted from her phone but still showing in the carrier logs. All at times I was at work, all in the past few weeks. I sat at our kitchen table, staring at the screen, a cold sweat breaking across my forehead. I felt sick but needed more. This wasn't enough. For a week I wrestled with what to do. I could confront her, but what if she denied it? What if I was wrong? What if this destroyed whatever was left of our marriage? But the alternative, living with the gnawing doubt, the growing suspicion, that wasn't sustainable either. My buddy Mike from the plant had gone through a divorce last year. His wife had cheated with their neighbor. Over beers one night, he'd mentioned hiring a PI to gather evidence. I'd thought it excessive at the time. Now it made perfect sense. Raymond Torres, Mike texted me the contact. Ex-cop, discreet, expensive but worth every penny. I met Torres at a diner 20 miles from home, somewhere Vanessa would never go. He was in his 50s, fit, with watchful eyes that missed nothing. I laid out my suspicions, the phone records, the behavior changes. You're not crazy, Torres said, sipping his coffee. Textbook signs. If there's something there, I'll find it. He quoted his rate. $2,500 up front for 2 weeks of surveillance, another $3,000 if he found evidence of infidelity. I wrote the check without blinking, draining most of my personal savings account. If there's nothing, Torres added, you'll have peace of mind. I didn't want peace of mind. I wanted to be wrong. The next 6 weeks were psychological torture. I maintained the routine, 6 a.m. shifts at the plant, managing problems, pretending everything was normal. I came home to a wife who barely acknowledged me, who was always running errands or meeting Sandra. I ate dinners alone more often than not. I slept beside a stranger. Meanwhile, I knew Torres was out there with his camera, following Vanessa, documenting her movements. Every time my phone buzzed, I expected devastating news. Every time she left the house, I wondered if this was the moment Torres would catch her. I lost 15 pounds. Couldn't sleep. My crew at the plant noticed. You okay, boss? You look like hell, my foreman asked one day. Just stress. New production quotas. I lied, brushing him off. Torres checked in weekly, methodical, emotionless, still gathering evidence. Patience, he'd say. Each call left me more anxious than the last. On a Wednesday evening in week 6, my phone rang. Torres. I've got what you need. Meet me tomorrow. Same place, he stated, his voice professional and direct. I barely made it through my shift the next day. My hands shook. My voice sounded strange in my own ears. At 5 p.m., I drove to the diner, legs leaden. Torres was already there, a manila envelope on the table. I'm sorry, man, he said as I sat down. It's not good. I opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Photos spilled out, dozens of them, each one a knife to my chest. Vanessa and a man I'd never seen, kissing in a restaurant booth, her hand on his face, holding hands walking into a hotel lobby, his hand on her thigh in his Mercedes. Vanessa pressed against him in a hotel hallway. The two of them framed in a hotel window, his hands in her hair. Every photo had a date and timestamp. 6 weeks of documentation. 6 weeks of betrayal. His name's Derek Kane, Torres said, sliding a second envelope across the table. Real estate developer, 47, drives that Mercedes S-Class. Lives in Oakwood Heights in a 5-bedroom on Riverside Drive, divorced twice. Known for chasing younger women. Torres had been thorough. Kane's address, business holdings, financial information, known associates. Everything I could need to know about the man sleeping with my wife. Worth about $8 million, Torres continued, his voice clinical, detached. Flashy type. Throws money around to impress. Has a reputation. I stared at a photo of them entering the Riverside Hotel, Vanessa carrying the gym bag she took to her non-existent yoga classes. The same hotel where we'd spent our first anniversary, back when our vows meant something. Torres slid a third envelope toward me. Copies of phone records, hotel receipts charged to his credit card, restaurant bills. Everything you need for a divorce attorney, he explained, then wrote a name on a napkin. Sarah, tough as nails. Specializes in infidelity cases. Tell her Ray sent you. I paid Torres the remaining $3,000, thanked him mechanically, and drove home in a daze. That night, Vanessa was already asleep when I arrived. Or pretending to be. I sat in our dark kitchen, the envelopes on the table, staring at nothing. The rage hadn't hit yet. Just cold certainty. My marriage was over. The woman I loved was gone. What remained was deciding how to end it. I made 2 decisions that night. First, I'd consult Sarah immediately and prepare legal papers with the evidence. Second, I wouldn't confront Vanessa until I was ready, until I had control of the situation, the house secured, the papers filed. I'd let her think she was getting away with it. And when the time came, I'd destroy her world the way she'd destroyed mine. I spent the next 3 weeks playing the oblivious husband. I smiled. I was polite. And every night I worked with my lawyer to build an airtight case. Vanessa had no idea what was coming. The 3 weeks between receiving Torres's evidence and the confrontation were the strangest of my life. I lived in two realities: the facade I maintained at home and the cold preparation happening behind the scenes. The morning after meeting Torres, I called Sarah. Her office was downtown, 40th floor, glass and chrome. She was exactly as Torres had described: petite, late 40s, with the sharpest eyes I'd ever seen. I laid out the photos, phone records, hotel receipts. She reviewed them methodically, nodding. "This is ironclad," she said, no emotion in her voice. "Under state adultery laws, we can argue for forfeiture of marital assets." She looked up. "The house is in your name from before the marriage?" I nodded. "Bought it 3 years before we met," I confirmed. "Good, she has no claim. Joint savings can be protected if we move quickly. If she contests, she'll lose badly," she assured me. Then named her retainer, $5,000. I wrote the check. Money I'd quietly moved from our joint savings into a separate account Vanessa didn't know about. "File the papers," I told her, "but hold them from being served. I want to handle this my way." Sarah nodded, understanding perfectly. "You'll hand them to her yourself when you're ready," she stated with professional certainty. That afternoon, I opened a new bank account at a different bank. I moved $15,000 from our joint savings, leaving enough that Vanessa wouldn't notice if she checked the balance casually. I changed passwords on our insurance policies, investment accounts, credit card portals. I made copies of all financial documents and stored them in my locker at work. I secured the title to our house in a safe deposit box. I updated my will to remove Vanessa as beneficiary. I transferred ownership of my truck fully into my name. Every move calculated, documented, protected. The emotional devastation transformed into logistical problems to solve, a checklist to complete before the hammer fell. At home, I played my role with a detachment that surprised me. I was cordial but distant, matching the energy Vanessa had been giving me for months. She barely noticed the difference. She was too busy with her secret life, sneaking phone calls in the bathroom, texting under the table during our infrequent dinners together, making excuses to go out. I watched it all with dead eyes, knowing exactly where she was going, who she was meeting, what lies she was telling. The pain had calcified into something hard and cold at the center of my chest. The most gutting moment came on a Thursday evening. Vanessa told me she was going to yoga class, a new hobby she'd supposedly taken up. I knew from Torres's surveillance schedule that Thursdays were when she typically met Kane at the Riverside Hotel. I sat at the kitchen table, watching her pack her gym bag, yoga mat poking out the top, water bottle, towel, all for show. "Have a good class," I said, my voice perfectly neutral. She kissed my cheek, a reflex, meaningless. "Love you," she said, already halfway out the door. 2 hours later, Torres sent me a photo update. Vanessa and Kane entering the Riverside Hotel, her gym bag still slung over her shoulder. I sat on the couch, staring at my phone, feeling absolutely nothing. The final piece fell into place the following Tuesday. I arranged my work schedule to ensure I'd have Friday off, told my supervisor I needed a personal day, didn't explain further. My plan was precise. Vanessa typically texted Kane around 4 p.m. on Fridays to coordinate evening meetups. If I came home unexpectedly around 6 p.m., there was a strong chance I'd catch them together, either mid-conversation or, if timing worked in my favor, at the house. I didn't tell Vanessa about the day off. She assumed I'd be at work until 7 p.m. as usual. Perfect. The night before the confrontation, I lay in bed beside my wife, staring at the ceiling. Vanessa was scrolling on her phone, back turned to me. 5 years of marriage ending in hours, and the person responsible was lying inches away, oblivious. I thought about our wedding day, the vows we'd made, the future we'd planned. "All of it ash now, Ethan?" Vanessa said suddenly, not turning around. "You okay? You've been quiet lately. Just tired?" I said. "Work's been rough." "Yeah," she replied absently, still looking at her phone. "You should rest more." I closed my eyes. "I will. Soon," I promised, the words hollow with meaning she couldn't understand. I set my alarm for 5 a.m. Friday morning. In 14 hours, my wife's perfect little fantasy would shatter, and I was going to enjoy every second of it. Friday morning arrived with a strange clarity. I woke at 5 a.m., my body tense with anticipation, mind preternaturally focused. I went through my normal routine, coffee, shower, work clothes, then left the house at my usual time. Vanessa was still asleep or pretending to be. I didn't say goodbye. I drove to a diner 20 miles away, ordered breakfast I couldn't taste, killed time flipping through a newspaper without reading a word. At 10 a.m., I checked into a motel room, somewhere to wait to prepare. I laid out clean clothes, dark jeans, a crisp button-down shirt. Not my usual work attire. Today wasn't usual. At 4:30 p.m., my phone buzzed. Torres. Subject texted Kane at 4:15. He's heading to your place at 5:30. You want me there? Torres asked in a follow-up message. No. I've got this, I replied. I changed clothes, checked myself in the mirror. My face looked different, harder, older. I drove home slowly, deliberately, arriving at exactly 5:45 p.m. Kane's Mercedes was parked in my driveway, gleaming in the late afternoon sun. My heart pounded against my ribs, but my hands were steady as I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. They were on the couch, not in a compromising position, but close enough that there was no mistaking the intimacy. Vanessa's face went white. Derek Kane looked momentarily startled, then composed himself into smug confidence. Ethan, Vanessa said, voice high and tight. Hi, you're home early. I took in the scene with detached precision. Derek in his tailored suit, Rolex glinting on his wrist, salt and pepper hair expertly styled. Taller than me, fitter, radiating the effortless arrogance of old money. Vanessa perched beside him, wearing a dress I'd never seen, makeup perfect, hair styled. They'd been drinking wine, my wine, from crystal glasses we'd received as wedding gifts. Who is this? I asked, voice ice cold. Derek stood, extended his hand. Derek Kane, pleasure to meet you, he said smoothly. I didn't move. Vanessa rose unsteadily, hands fluttering nervously. Ethan, we need to talk, she began. Things haven't been good between us lately. And I've met someone who makes me happy. She gestured toward Derek. I haven't cheated on you, not physically, she lied, the words spilling out too quickly. But emotionally, I've moved on. I want a divorce, Derek chimed in, his voice practiced, reasonable. Look, man, no hard feelings. These things happen. But Vanessa deserves better than what you can give her. She deserves someone who can provide the life she wants, he explained condescendingly. He mentioned his development projects. His new condominium complex implied without saying directly that I was beneath them both, a factory manager while he built million-dollar homes. Vanessa nodded along, adding her rehearsed lines about splitting everything 50-50, staying mature about it, how I'd always been limited in ambition and vision. I let them talk. I let them believe they were in control of this narrative. When they finally ran out of words, I nodded thoughtfully. Wait here, I said calmly. I have a gift for both of you before you go. I walked upstairs to our bedroom, soon to be just mine. From the closet shelf, I retrieved my licensed 9mm handgun, secured it in its holster, and tucked it into my waistband, visible but not threatening. Then I gathered 2 manila envelopes from the bedside drawer and returned downstairs. Derek saw the gun first. His confidence evaporated instantly, eyes widening. Vanessa noticed his reaction, followed his gaze, and gasped. Ethan, what are you? She stammered, fear replacing her earlier confidence. Sit down, I commanded, my voice dropping to deadly calm. They both sank onto the couch. I dropped the first envelope on the coffee table. Photos spilled out. Every hotel visit, every kiss, every intimate moment captured by Torres's camera. Dozens of images spanning 6 weeks. Vanessa's face crumbled as she saw them. How did you? She began, voice trembling. Private investigator, I said flatly. 6 weeks of surveillance. Every lie documented. Every hotel visit. Every yoga class. Every girls' night. Derek shifted uncomfortably, clearing his throat. Listen, Clark, he attempted. Shut up, I cut him off. You don't speak in my house. I dropped the second envelope beside the first. Divorce papers, filed under adultery statutes, asset forfeiture clauses highlighted in yellow. My lawyer says with this evidence you get nothing, I said, looking directly at Vanessa. No house. No savings. No alimony. Nothing. Vanessa broke down sobbing, mascara running down her cheeks. "Ethan, please. We can talk about this." It was a mistake. "I'll end it with Derek. I can change. I still love you," she pleaded desperately. Derek stood, straightening his jacket. "I think I should leave," he announced, trying to regain his composure. "Sit down," I ordered. He remained standing. "I'm going," he said, stepping toward the door. "This is between you two." Something snapped inside me. 15 years of factory floor discipline, of controlling my temper, of being the reasonable one, it all vanished in an instant. I closed the distance between us in 2 strides, grabbed Derek by his expensive lapels, and slammed him against the wall hard enough to knock the breath from his lungs. Then I unleashed everything I'd been holding in for 6 weeks. A fist to his stomach doubled him over. A knee to his face as he bent forward sent blood spraying from his nose. I didn't lose control. Each blow was methodical, calculated, precise. Not rage, but cold justice. Derek crumpled to the floor, whimpering, blood streaming down his face and onto his silk tie. I grabbed him by the collar and dragged him toward the door. "Get out," I growled, throwing him onto the porch. "And if I ever see you near my house, near my street, near my wife again, I won't stop at bruises." Derek crawled to his car, fumbling with his keys. Blood dripping onto his leather seats as he started the engine and peeled away. I turned back to Vanessa, who stood frozen in the living room, her face a mask of shock and terror. "You have 10 minutes to grab whatever you can carry," I stated coldly. "Then you're out." Vanessa began to sob, falling to her knees. "Ethan, please, don't do this. I'll end it with Derek. I'll change. I love you." "It was just a stupid mistake," she begged through tears. 9 minutes. 30 seconds, I replied, checking my watch. She ran upstairs, frantically throwing things into suitcases, crying loudly enough that I could hear her through the ceiling. 8 minutes later, she appeared at the top of the stairs with 2 overstuffed suitcases, tears streaming, still pleading for mercy. I opened the front door. "Time's up." "Get out," I ordered without emotion. As she walked past me, defeated, I added, "Don't contest the divorce. You'll only waste money on a lawyer. The evidence is solid. You won't win." Vanessa collapsed beside her car, sobbing uncontrollably. I closed the door, locked it. Inside, I sat on the couch, head in my hands, breathing steady. It was over. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark, replaying everything, feeling nothing. The next morning, I called my lawyer and said 2 words. Serve her. 60 days later, the divorce was finalized. The photographic evidence made it an open and shut case. Vanessa's court-appointed attorney advised her not to contest. It would be throwing good money after bad. I kept the house, the savings, everything we'd built together. Vanessa walked away with nothing but the clothes she'd packed that night. Derek Kane never pressed charges for the assault. He was too terrified, too humiliated. Word spread through. His business circles about what happened, the affair exposed, the beating, his retreat. His reputation suffered. Investors questioned his judgment. 2 months later, he relocated to Arizona, telling associates it was for new opportunities. In reality, he was running from me. Vanessa tried finding refuge with her parents, Robert and Susan Miller. But I'd called them the night of the confrontation, sent them copies of the photos, explained everything in detail. When Vanessa arrived with her suitcases, her father opened the door just wide enough to deliver his judgment. "You're not welcome here. You destroyed your marriage. Figure it out on your own," he stated firmly before closing the door in her face. She ended up in a rundown efficiency apartment across town, waiting tables at a diner, barely making rent. She tried reaching out to me once, a text message full of apologies and regrets. I blocked her number immediately. She tried Derek. No response. She was alone. 6 months after the confrontation, I sat on my back porch with a beer watching the sunset. My phone buzzed. A text from Lisa, a woman I'd been dating for a few weeks, a coworker's sister. "Dinner this weekend?" the message read. "Sounds perfect," I typed back with a genuine smile. I scrolled through my contacts, found Vanessa's name, and deleted it. I didn't need it anymore. The house was quiet, peaceful. My life was my own again. In the end, I didn't just survive betrayal. I destroyed it, rebuilt myself, and moved forward. The past is ash. The future is mine. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.